So I'm just going to quickly go over the techniques I use for editing this particular photograph. The background is already pretty good. Usually I do like to clean it up a little bit, but it was a fresh roll and there were no little creases or anything like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is go and do a frequency separation. Now I did this in the other video. Yeah, so what this is going to do is give me the best way to airbrush this image. So what you end up with is a blur layer and a layer that's purely texture, and from here on you can manually change how much of each layer you want to take out. So I'm going to start on our blurry layer. So what you want to do for this is go on your lasso and set your feather to something nice, and my Gaussian blur set to Control B. Okay, just wanted to double check. So select the area that you want to blur, Control B, and change the radius to where you can't see any of the shadows and highlights created from the natural texture, and that's going to help us later with areas that we want to cover up. So for example, I did the makeup on this photo shoot, so I can tell you that our model here, Sean's eyebrows are glued down, and what can happen with that is it sometimes creates a little bit of texture which shows up doubly under studio lighting. So I'm just going to go along, and it's a bit of a slow process, so I'll probably speed this up in a second. But basically I'm going to go along, and anywhere where there is texture or a disparity in the colour, I'm just going to blur. Great, now to move on to the texture, we go into the clone stamp tool, alt click and define our source, and then just paint. I don't like to go with an entirely soft brush, so I'm just going to open that a little bit. Then, oh, see, we've accidentally taken on all the texture of that wig, which looks really weird. So we're going to try that again. And yeah, I just like to work in little sections. What this does is it removes areas that you don't want, while still keeping them looking real and still maintaining skin texture. And that's really important, because people do have texture to their skin. So that is just a particularly quick version of doing it. So now I'm going to cheat and do my Blue Peter style. Here is one I did earlier. Isn't that nice? So now with the rest of this image, I am going to use, oh gosh, Joe, I've not shown you this cheeky chair and how to get rid of it. I'll show you that really quickly on the frequency separation. So just copying that, I'm going to merge this group so it comes back to being one layer, and pretty much just use clone stamp tool. I think is going to be the easiest. I'm going to make it a little bit harder, it's a little too soft for me. Lovely. And this is kind of my philosophy towards doing this kind of thing, is make a mess and then clean it up. So obviously that does look very edited. We can see that there was once something there. but in the end, it won't do. So now I'm going to go back to Patch Tool, really quick and simple. And what I like about Patch Tool is it copies and blends tone as well as texture. So basically what this is going to do is be our get out of jail free card. Just blend all of that texture for us, just so we're not wasting any time really. I mean, with everything there's a way to do it with 10 menus and very exact settings that are on Adobe forums from 15 years ago. But you don't really want to use those. Or I don't anyway. Lovely. So now, going back to here's one I made earlier that I spent a little bit more time on. I'm going to use the crop tool. And now this is a little trick that I learned. You can click content aware, because I was going to content aware fill my blank areas anyway. So if you can click content aware there, then you don't even need to content aware fill it. And so I'm just going to give it loads of extra space. And then let content aware chew through that. It's going to take a second. Voila! Really simple, really easy. So the concept of this photo shoot, I apologise, was to use all of these wonderful fans. Now our model Sean actually had this big collection of all these fans, and it was just amazing, and I really wanted to include them in the photo shoot. So what I'm going to do is, first off, duplicate my background so that if I horribly destroy it, at least it'll be able to go back to something. And should have done this before, I'm going to also layer mask. Oh. Hey! So what I'm going to do is basically do a layer mask which is lossless. And anywhere that I don't want, I just paint black. Paint black over the layer mask and it disappears, but then if I want it back, I just change and paint white over the layer mask here, and it comes back. Really, really helpful for selections and things that you want to be a little bit more particular about. And what I'm going to do is Magic Wand tool a few areas. I'm going to make sure I do it on the right layer also. Make sure I get all of these little noodly bits. Go to select similar. Now there are similar tones in the dress that Sean wears. So what I'm going to do is, just on quick selection tool, erase those areas. This is pretty good. Again, it's a fast way of doing it, but it provides very much the same results as the quicker ways. Then we can use the same tool, but on the adding side to the quick selection tool, because before I used the minus. Oh, whoopsie daisy. And then right click, fill, black. Oh, make sure you've got the right layer selected, fill black. How's that look? Pretty okay, it's a nice little long. So we just simply drag this, give it a little jig around, and then going back to my fantastic Blue Peter style, here's one I did earlier. Repeat the process, and here's one I did earlier. So that's pretty much the process. It's not particularly hard if you know what you're doing, but I think it gives a really fantastic result.